Hello, everyone. I'm Traci Arieli, end of life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Welcome to the show. Studies have shown that engaging in creative expression after a loss can aid in processing grief by providing us with a sense of control and a way to work through our emotions. These practices are known to reduce symptoms of complicated grief and to facilitate emotional healing. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Lula Buzz, a remarkable artist who works with clay and explores the themes of grief, memory, and healing. Lula's unique approach not only involves creating art, but also engaging physically with the material. Through her workshops and projects like the Clay Cafe for the Bereaved, she invites others to explore their grief in a safe and supportive environment. Lula, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Traci. It's really lovely to be here today. Thank you.
Can you share your personal journey that led you to focus on clay as a medium?
Yeah, of course. So it goes back a long time. When I left school, I worked in a pottery actually. We weren't actually making the pots, but it was my job to glaze them and decorate. So I got into clay and pottery really early. But what really ignited my passion for like raw clay is when I saw this amazing outcrop of Kuiper clay. So it's a lovely, beautiful red clay with blue streaks through it. And that was at the university where I went. And of course, it was real. It was from the earth, it was raw, and it gave me such a really strong sense of belonging and connectedness. And it was at that point that I began to engage with the clay as a natural material that was part of the earth's history rather than a material to kind of use to impose an image on it. So I was working with the clay as the material itself, its history, its character. I was really kind of absorbed and immersed in it.
Beautiful. Now, I know on November 7th, 2021, your husband Manfred passed away. How
Yeah.
did your relationship with clay change at that point?
Oh, gosh. Wow. Um, to begin with, I feel like having that deep connection with the earth and the clay uh, got me through. It helped me keep some sort of ground there. Um, and the clay itself became more sacred, more special to me. There was a certain piece of clay that I dug and I'd worked with during lockdown. So it was just recently before he passed. And this clay became so precious to me. It was almost like it became his body
Mhm.
and the closest thing. And so that piece of clay just became so sacred for me. And I worked with this clay to make a heart for his coffin. And I worked with the plants in the garden to include certain ones. I kind of felt into Manfred and what he loved. I was really guided by him as to which plants he wanted. So I embedded them in this heart and pressed them against my chest. So it had the impression of my fingertips in the heart. So kind of held me. It held me through that rawness of the shock. He died very suddenly. So the clay really held me and connected me deeply with him.
It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
What is it about clay that makes it particularly powerful for expressing grief? What do you think?
Well, I have brought some clay with me. So this is clay that I've dug up, and so it's local clay, which is in itself gives that sense of connectedness, belonging. And the clay is so beautifully soft when it's watered, when it's got water in it like this, it's so beautifully soft and it yields. So whatever emotion you're feeling, it's like it receives it, just receives it so beautifully. So it becomes like a mirror of your emotions. And when a loved one passes and you're missing them, you're missing that physicality. That's it's and the clay gives you a sense of that physicality. And because it kind of transforms and it moves with your body, it's got that kind of living element to it.
It is living. It is from the earth. And it's almost like, we
Yes.
return to the earth, and this is all part of the earth.
Yes, that's right. It so much is. I mean, it's just as I'm just touching it there, it's kind of, it's just, you can see that it's just holding my impression.
Yes.
So whatever I'm feeling, and I feel that with the clay is, if I think about a Manfred or one of my other loved ones, if I really think about them and work with the clay, I really get a sense of being really connected with them.
So, and that is like, how far do you have to travel to get this from because this is from your own landscape. This is from your own.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm very close to Dartmoor here, just literally a couple of miles. And this clay is actually worn down granite. And it's worn down. So it comes from really hard material that's gradually worn down and then been transported and sedimented. And it's just a few miles away from me. It's no distance for it. It's beautiful to work with. It's another level of connection.
That sounds amazing. Now, the projects on your site are powerful. I love that you not only make something with the clay, but that you do something physically with it also as part of the art. Can you talk about some of your projects and your process?
Yes, of course. So I'll talk about the grief dolls that I've been making with the clay with the heart. When I created the heart, it sort of it just told me what size it needed to be, and I had some of the clay was left. I had some left over, and I started making these little tiny grief dolls. Let's see if I can show you. So they're
Beautiful.
little figures,
Yeah.
and
for those who are listening versus watching, these are just small. Like she just held one up where it almost looks like two figures. These are two figures holding each other, and they're really small, only about like 3 inches, but they're really unique. Really well done.
And so I started making. I didn't intend to. I was just sort of working with the clay, soothing myself. And I thought, oh, that looks like a little figure. And I turned it over, and there was another figure there. And suddenly I felt so connected to Manfred, and my heart started to swell. you know, and it was so lovely. And so I just started making these and setting some time for me to do this, and really kind of talking to Manfred and saying, we're going to make something together. And so he felt, so he was part of that process. So we were making it together, you know, and the little figures, as I was saying with the heart, they take on the size that feels right. And I've made about 40, there's about 46 or so of them now. And I can't, it going through the grief when you're feeling that such pain and that void, and you know you're sobbing and screaming, and oh, that real, like, what do I do, how do I deal with this? I took the clay and started making one of these, that kind of, I'd get that kind of uplift, and and just lifting me up, making me feel so connected and grateful. So I'd go from that emptiness to feeling that gratitude that we can feel when we're grieving, that, you know, there's that total devastation, and then the gratitude for knowing that person, for being part of their lives, and, you know, having that beautiful bond. So yeah, so that those doors, and it's interesting because I didn't really fire the clay before. I wasn't so interested in that. I loved the clay in its raw state, and I still do. But I knew these had to be fired because of that transition. So it was kind of reflecting the transition from one state of being to another.
So before Manfred, did you experience other loss of loved ones?
I did, yes. My father died, so it would be 24 years ago. So yeah, I did.
I'm curious about your experience without the clay, and then with the clay. How has the process of working with clay and grief changed that experience, that grieving experience?
I would say there's a softness. Yeah, there's a real softness working with the clay. When my dad died, I was working with clay, but the projects were more kind of about going out of myself. So I feel like the projects, I didn't feel them rising up from within me. And he was so encouraging. And so I felt that I wanted to complete the ones that he knew about. So that's how I kind of dealt with it, how I kind of moved through the grief. So there was a certain, in a way, a drive there. Now with Manfred and working with the clay, there wasn't that drive. There was more of softening into it and feeling into it, and gentleness and softness.
Now, I noticed that with the work you do today with the clay and the dolls and the heart, that these are symbols of love. And is that purposeful? Are there other symbols that you incorporate into your work?
I mean, I feel like everything it is love, connection, and continuing our love and relationship together in a different way. But there are definitely are symbols. For example, like at the moment, I'm in the process of making a piece around anniversaries, because obviously it's coming up, Manfred's anniversary. And I've also got Roxy was his collie, beloved collie, who stayed with me for 2 years afterwards. She's just so magical. And you know, these anniversaries, they're big, really, really big, aren't they? And so going towards these, she passed away last year on the 11th of October, and then he was on the 7th, but earlier, 2 years earlier, 7th of November, 2 years earlier. So there was this year, there was that kind of, they were coming, it felt like they were, these anniversaries and this time was kind of looming. And my mother passed away as well this year. So there was that, yeah, in March. So there was a real sense of the heaviness. And her birthday's also in that period of time. So I've started making it, and I'm going to show you this because it's got some of the symbols in it. And this is, I'm calling it Seasons of Heavenly Returns. Season of Heavenly Returns. And so this is Roxy's Frisbee. So this, yeah, so I'm using Roxy's Frisbee as the kind of container for this. And I've filled it with clay. And then every day since the 11th, I've made a little impression in the clay with my finger, and then I've put, I don't know whether you can see that, but can you see that blue there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, right. The blue is really important because the blue, it symbolizes Roxy and Manfred. That's them. They're the blue. And Roxy had incredibly bright blue eyes and a really stunner for a dog. And Manfred had blue eyes, and I've got blue eyes. So blue is that's their color. And so I've used that as the first one, which that signifies Roxy's anniversary. And then I've placed a leaf, which is from just outside Manfred's studio window. And this is, he loves this tree, absolutely loves it. And he photographed it only literally a couple of days before he died. So that's really significant. And so I've used that that's another symbol. And then I've followed on to the next day, but I've used a different, there's the red clay there. Now to me, the red clay it's kind of lifeblood. Because it's that warmth, and it also is symbolizing that we're now in this period of kind of a sacred space, which is different. And it's about really appreciating that life, this side and the other side of life. And that red is the warmth and the love and that sacred space. So I've continued every day, and I will continue till the 7th of November.
Two things. I love how you use art in ritual, because that's ritual, and it just is so soulful, so almost holy. It's wonderful. The second thing is, I love that, like, from back far, it almost looks like those are like human beings or beings, like, and that they're all gathering almost, it looks really interesting. And I think that piece is going to be beautiful.
Oh, thank you. do you know, it came to me only the day before it was, and you know, it just came into being. I feel like it came from them, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. And I can't wait to
Thank
see the
you.
finished product. So
Thank
please send me
you.
pictures.
Yeah, of course I will.
Thank
And
you.
it's holding me. It holds like it does. These, like you said, these rituals hold us. Yeah.
People don't realize how important ritual is in grief because it helps us make meaning out of things.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I you know, I've gone through all sorts of rituals that have really helped and held me through all of this grief and yeah, and just learning how to be living here on earth as I am now, a changed person.
How does your community respond to your art?
Ah, yeah, they are intrigued and really touched, I feel. Yeah. So I've got a community with widows that is really supportive. It's wonderful, really lovely. Yeah. It's beautiful to have them. And then, you know, they're not necessarily like artists, or they come from all sorts of backgrounds, of course. Um, but they really appreciate that stillness and really giving time to look after yourself and remember your loved one and just continue that relationship. So that's beautiful. And then the artists, they appreciate the ritual and the working with clay in a different way.
I appreciate the rawness of your work. It really is very grounded and just raw, and I love it. It's real,
Thank you.
authentic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. It starts from the ground. It's yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Clay Cafe for the bereaved?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, oh, it's such a lovely thing to be doing, and it's really, really special because this is something that I was planning, and my mom, my dear ma, she knew about it. We talked about it a little bit, and she, in her last few days, I was explaining to her that I'm going to do this clay cafe for the bereaved, and that I really want to help others remember their loved ones and remember and keep them alive in their lives, and to do that with the clay that's so soft. And she said, oh, it's so pure. She said, yes, and I will help you. I know.
Mm.
And it was so pure and straight from her heart to my heart. And it's just become a really special space. And yeah,
So
there's a
these people are not artists. I'm assuming most of them are just
oh,
non-artist. And where do you guys meet? Like do they bring their own clay? Do you supply what is the whole
okay,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. So no, they're not artists, although they've got you know, they're interested in the arts and they've obviously, you know, that way of working. So they're kind of quite open to that. The ones who've come so far, you know, um, and um, it's at a community centre. So I wanted it to be somewhere that was kind of really open for anybody who needed it, wanted it. And it's something I also knew that would take a little while to, really build up, and that's fine. It's again, like the clay, it's a gentle growing with it. I bring the clay, and I say that, this is our local clay to begin with. So there's that connection there. So that in itself, to begin with, is a way of kind of grounding us together in the space. And then when we have a cup of tea, it's all very gentle. We have a cup of tea and biscuits, and we say, well, take a few moments to think about, who are we particularly thinking about today, this month, who's in our thoughts. And it's beautiful to really take that time just to remember that person. And it's so beautiful, because when they're all ladies so far, and when they're talking about their loved ones, the smile comes, and just being witnessed is so special.
Yes, and it's really an important part of grief to not only be witnessed, but to witness other people also in their grief and their loved ones, and to remember a person not for their death, but for their life.
Yes.
I think is,
yes.
And to continue that relationship with that person.
Yes. And then I'll kind of invite them to take some clay, and I've got it's a kind of special metal container vessel that I take out when I'm digging the clay. And you're talking about it being raw. It's just there on the table as dug,
Nice.
So we can just, it's straight out the ground. So there's no processing there. It's that directness. And so it just,
And do people just use their hands, or do you have tools also? And
there's tools there if people want to, things that they can impress. And it's really just very, very open. It's almost like, let the clay do the talking, and let your emotions do the talking. And it could be, there's some clay here. It could be just feeling the clay and then working with it. And then the clay will kind of transform. And then as we go along, we kind of talk about what the clay's doing and the feelings that's coming up for us. It's just really beautiful, really lovely. Yeah.
I think that so many people lose that ability to do art, play, to do anything like that as we grow into adults, and to be able to experience that again is a real gift. I'm curious, how, do you see the transformation with people as they go through this process? What's it like for you?
I do. I do. It's amazing. You see, their whole being really does change. It really does. And they can come in quite, tentative. They've obviously, when you're grieving, it's so hard to make a step, to do something. It can be so hard. And to see them coming in a little bit, tentative, not when what is going on, and you welcome them in, and God, there's such a transformation. So there's been, tears, and also then you see that there's a smile inside them that rises, and that's so magical. It is so magical. So if I can help that, if I can me and the clay together can give a space for that to just ease and soothe. That's just beautiful. Yeah.
Now, what have you learned personally from facilitating these workshops? How has that changed you?
I feel the compassion of others, and yeah, in a deeper way. I feel nourished. I feel really nourished. And I see that they're nourished. And I also feel that also their loved ones are nourished. And and I see that nourishment all around. Yeah, that's what it feels like. And with that nourishment, I'm really appreciating the slowness and trusting in that space, trusting in my life, and trusting that I'm on the right path. And yeah.
Do you see cultural differences in how people engage with the clay as they're processing grief, or is it we're just all the same?
I feel like things definitely change a lot when they've actually got the clay. It makes such a difference. So I feel like it's almost like it's a leveler. The clay is a leveler because it's such a primal thing. Yeah, I see that and I feel that. It's just making that initial connection and knowing that that's all right to do that, to be that, to work with it.
Now, I know that some of your work is, not only do you have the work, but you really interact with the clay. It's almost, I'm not going to say performance art, but it is almost. Can you talk about that a little? And can you talk about what you hope people take away from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have got an example that I'm working with at the moment, and this is for my mother. I've been making little figures, and are bigger than the grief dolls, but these little figures, I'm going to do a little ritual in the river, and so you can see when I smooth the clay. It really is. This is like I'm caring for my mother again. That touch. But so again, I feel like we've done it. We've been working together on this. But there's a little river very close by, just at the bottom of the garden, and I've been placing these little figures in the river, and gradually they become part of the river, and they change and sort of dissolve, and it's that transformation again. So, but this is a ritual, and this is, or everything that I do is very kind of placing them in the river, and that process of watching the river, giving thanks, is real in the whole process. That's how I'm working at the moment with them. And then I've got an example here. So I would take a photograph in the river of them, and they've become really ethereal and change and transform, like otherworldly. So it makes you feel about the other world that our loved ones are in now. And just acknowledging that, actually thinking about that, and having gratitude for that, and also having this connection, but also in a gentle way, that not holding on to. I think this is releasing in a gentle way. So there's still a connection there, knowing that they are not in the physical anymore, but their love, their essence, their spirit is still with us.
Would you ever consider doing that as one of your clay cafes, having people do something like that and go to a river, take a picture?
Yeah, I have thought about doing that, and that's something I'd really like to do. Yeah,
that would be really powerful.
Yeah, would be beautiful. Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give to someone that's looking into using, it could be clay, it could be another medium, but looking really to get started to use art to process their own grief?
Oh, yeah. I would say it's really healing. Can be really, really healing. And the thing is to give yourself space for that. Yeah, space, time and space, so you can really, like sink into it, and try not to think about like outcomes too much. Yeah, because then that you get in your head.
Yeah. Instead of your heart and in your hands. You should let whatever your hands are doing come from your heart. Just feel it versus trying to plan.
Yeah, that's right. So so to be able to have that space to kind of sink into it, and just feel into your heart and feel what your emotions are, and whatever it might be. Pastels are lovely and soft. Pastels are beautiful. And just respond, just be really intuitive, I feel, with the colors. Just be intuitive with it. And you don't have to show anybody. You can do, but at that starting point, it's for you. And really, really kind of think about your loved one. Really think about them. Something beautiful, something lovely. And begin by making a mark, and just see what flows. Yeah. And whatever flows, there will be something there that connects you with them.
Many people might not have the funds or might not have the room to create something like a painting or a sculpture or work with clay. But even if it's as simple as making a collage or going online and making an online collage, just taking pictures and putting it on, your Word document or whatever that is.
Right.
There's so many ways to express yourself.
Yeah, I've done a lot. I always write something in my journal, and sometimes, especially in early days, it could have been just a word. That's all I could manage. But I always put a date, and I'd always put Manfred's initial, and I still do. And sometimes it's just a word. And you know what? That changes things for me. I can feel absolutely devastated and just so bereft. And actually it does take effort do that, to open the book, to get the pen and make a mark. But actually, I have always felt better for it. Always, because there's a sense of peace, there's a sense of connection, and a sense that you're looking after yourself, your heart, your emotions. And yeah, that's really special. And sometimes I've just pasted something in there, and it does, even if it's that's beautiful in itself. And actually then you can look back at it, and you might be surprised when you look back at it. I'm surprised. I am surprised.
Yeah. I love how you bring connection into it, because when I journal, that's just one of the things I do. And it is really, I feel like I'm having a conversation with the universe when I journal. It's really powerful for me. It's more than just writing out my life, what my life is. It's much more than that, for me at least. And that for your art, that's what it sounds like with your art also. It's really a connection.
Oh, I honestly, I need it. I truly need it to live in this world.
Yes. Legacy might not be the right word, but I was thinking, what legacy do you aim to leave in the realm not only of art but grief? What do you want to leave the world with?
Okay.
Easy question.
I'm gonna feel into this a little bit, because this is something that will probably change, but I'm gonna feel into this. And so I'm feeling like, if I was on the other side of life and looking back, what would I have liked to have left? I'd love my artwork to be a bridge between this world and next. Yeah.
That is very powerful, like your artwork. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable.
Oh.
And thank you so much for being on the show. How can our listeners learn more about your work and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so there's my website, which is claysidecallings.com. And also I do have an Instagram, which is, again, Clayside Callings. And yeah, I think I can be got through those two things.
I could say from experience, I got her through Instagram, I think. I saw you through Instagram, and then I reached out through your website.
Great, yes, Instagram. And on Instagram at the moment, I've got the season of Heavenly Returns, and I'm photographing each day. So,
Wonderful. Thank you. Folks, the process of grieving is deeply personal, and it can often feel overwhelming and isolating. Expressing those emotions through art offers not just a release, but a path to healing. Whether you're molding clay, painting a canvas, or engaging in any other form of creative expression, the act of creating allows us to externalize our feelings, giving them shape and form. This process can provide a sense of control, help make sense of our grief, and connect with others. I encourage you to give it a try. Thank you for joining us. If you've any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you've found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Traci Arieli from Comforting Closure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.